Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. I'm Deborah Garlick from Henpicked Menopause in the Workplace and author of the book Menopause, The Change for the Better. And today's session, Cook, Eat, Nourish Through the Menopause. This is something a little bit different. So we've invited Fiona Staunton from Fiona's Food for Life to join us today, because of course we often run sessions on nutrition and have lunch and learns on nutrition. But for some of us, actually having that, if you like, information doesn't necessarily help us put it into practicalities. So what do you do every day? How are you going to change your routine? And actually, who wants to change everything in their routine? And, you know, so this is a much more practical session. So welcome, Fiona, and thank you very much for joining us today. And I know that you're in a cooking school at the moment, so we can see a picture in the background in your filing cabinet, and we know you've just come out of an oven, so out of a classroom with ovens. So it must be particularly hot in this weather.
Oh, it is, definitely. It is just, oh, it'd be so good to be outdoors at the moment, but we can't complain. Fabulous weather.
Yes, fingers crossed it keeps on for a while. So just really conscious, this is a practical one, and we want people to go away with practical top tips at the end of today's session. But I was actually curious how you got into cooking to nourish through the menopause. What was your experience?
Well, I suppose I'd always loved cooking, and I did my degree in home economics education, and then I went to Ballymaloe Cookery School and I started cooking there. So I'd always been passionate about cooking, and I love helping people when they have a particular problem around food, and my aim will be to help people cook from scratch. So that's the cooking background. But then, unfortunately, when I was 45, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I'm very lucky that it was caught early. I had a mastectomy, and I was then to have hormone therapy, which I didn't really know what it was. It sounded fine. It was an injection once a month and a tablet, and I'd be sorted. But it was horrific in the beginning. It was menopause overnight with severe symptoms. So when I was going through it, I couldn't even walk from the sofa to the kettle without holding onto the wall to go and make a cup of tea. I had that vicious insomnia, fatigue, vicious cycle where I couldn't sleep in the night. I was so tired during the day. Brain fog. I couldn't remember what I was meant to be doing. So I had those symptoms really, really harshly and very abruptly when that happened. So then I turned to food to see what could I do with my diet. So for me, estrogen is blocked. So I currently have the estrogen of a 100-year-old woman. And so I have a monthly injection to keep me in menopause, and then I take a daily tablet. So estrogen can be produced like in the fat around the middle, or from your ovaries will be the main place, or your adrenal glands. So I'm taking those tablets to stop any estrogen production. And I know I've mentioned to you before, I thought estrogen was just periods and pregnancy, but it is needed for so much more.
Well, I'm really sorry to hear about your experience. And I know so many others experience the same thing, because some people take HRT, some would rather not, and some people really can't. So this is an ideal opportunity for those who may be experiencing the same thing as yourself to say, well, what can I do to manage my symptoms? And you're right, you know, so many of us didn't know what estrogen was, and it's that old age adage, isn't it, that you don't know what you've lost until it's gone. And here you are experiencing symptoms. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing that. And thinking about the food, then I'm going to jump right in and say, what foods actually have you found alleviate your symptoms?
Okay, so the first thing is really having a very balanced diet. But phytoestrogens are, they are my savior, really. So phytoestrogen is a natural plant-based compound that is in a number of foods, and it mimics estrogen in your body. So it doesn't produce estrogen, but it does all the things for like brain health and heart health and joint pain and everything that we need from the estrogen. So simple phytoestrogens, just to remember, we've got soybeans, lentils and flaxseed. So if we work on just those three for an example, soybeans, so it might be like an organic tofu or a soya product, or I love edamame beans. Organic edamame beans are just always around and a really good source of protein as well as phytoestrogens. Lentils, traditionally in our culture, we probably wouldn't have a lot of lentils, but I make a beautiful lentil salad, a red lentil dal. They keep for days. They are so nutritious, and you're getting all of your phytoestrogens. And then flax seeds. So I would have a combination of ground and whole flax seeds, because we can't get the nutrients from the whole flax seeds, but they're fantastic at keeping us regular. So I would tend to have a mixture of both of those, and I have some lovely recipes for those as well.
Can I ask you about phytoestrogens? Because I get confused. I know you say it mimics, but my mum had a double mastectomy, and you know, she was asking me about, because she has a similar experience to yours, that, you know, her estrogen is completely drained, and her symptoms were probably worse just after. But you know, I was thinking phytoestrogens, if you're blocking your estrogen, should you be supplementing them with phytoestrogens, or is it something that you should check out with your oncologist?
I suppose it's always safe to check out with your oncologist, and I have checked out with mine, and she has said, absolutely no way can I take a supplement. So that is a really concentrated phytoestrogen. But if it is in naturally occurring foods, work away. She said, I don't think you could physically eat as much soybean as would need to make that would make any impact on the actual estrogen. So I got the green light to go ahead and put as much phytoestrogen in, and I make sure I have them every day.
Okay, so phytoestrogen rich foods are a hero during this time. So I've got that as number one. Sorry if you see me writing down my notes.
No problem.
Any others in there at all?
So I mentioned earlier a balanced diet. So it's really about having a really broad, balanced diet. So you're having lots of fiber, you're having omega-3, like a really good quality extra virgin olive oil is a great gift you can give yourself. You can drizzle it over so many things, or even take a spoon of it. It's like the Mediterranean diet. A really good extra virgin olive oil will help give you that omega-3. Or your oily fish. So I will often have tin sardines or tin mackerel that I will just put with a salad. So I know that I'm getting those omega-3s. They're really good for my brain. I really notice if I'm not having those omega-3s. But your high fiber food, your whole grains, really whole foods is what we're looking for. Calcium and magnesium, making sure you're having all of your leafy greens, your protein, really important. You know, I don't count macros or calories or anything like that, but I will try and look at my plate and see, am I getting enough protein throughout the day? And there's lovely ways to add proteins, Deborah. You could add like toast. I do toasted sunflower and pumpkin seeds, and I put a little bit of liquid aminos on them, which is the protein from the soybean, and I store them in a jar. I will put them as a snack on top of salads, on top of soups. You can just, by adding little things like that, adding chopped nuts on top of things, there are lots of different ways that you can add protein in. It doesn't need to be, you know, your piece of tofu or your piece of fish or your piece of chicken, whatever it might be. You can just add things on, and Greek yogurt is another great source.
You're making this sound very easy. And as you know, I don't cook at all. It's something my husband does. So, you know, he'd be more likely to sign up for your 6-week course that you've got running in October than I would, because there'd be no point. I'd just have to go and tell him everything. But actually then that's actually quite simple. So can we get into some practical steps? Because, you know, you can't change everything overnight. So where do you start and how do you continue?
Okay, great question, because the last thing you want to do is add overwhelm to someone who's going through menopause. So the first thing I do is start where you're at. So if for you, somebody does all the cooking for you, which is fantastic, maybe you want to think of, well, am I having enough of the phytoestrogen rich foods? And would I be good to have an edamame salad that'll keep for a few days? And I just add that onto what I'm having. Or if you're cooking for a busy family, perhaps you've got teenagers, you're looking after elderly parents, you know, it's different for everyone, is look at where you're at and what works for you. So if spaghetti bolognese is the meal that works well in your house, nobody complains, you can have it made in the freezer, whatever it is, that's fantastic. No judgment, that's brilliant. Just add something to that that's going to help you. And that's where you might have a bit of a lentil salad that you will make up. Again, it'll keep for 3 or 4, 5 days. And you have that on the side of what already works. So you're looking after you. Now is the time to look after you. So that would be the first thing really, is start where you're at and then go from there. So it's not about changing everything. It'll be one small change at a time. So you might introduce one new recipe this week, but don't just throw everything out. Start with where you're at and build on it.
So when you say spag bog, what would you add? You say add a lentil salad on the side. Are there some things, because you were saying about adding fibre into it? So if you change the pasta for something like courgette spiraletti, or or something like that, actually that's the one I have. I prefer courgette to actually bolognese, and I think that's quite a healthy swap.
Absolutely. So you can change it to a different type of pasta, or you could add in the courgette instead, or you could even add some lentils into it. But I was thinking more perhaps about a person who is feeding kids and they're not going to want that. So rather than cooking different meals and adding everything into it, I'm thinking have something on the side. So the next day, your lunch can then be that lentil salad and some sardines or mackerel or something ready to go. And you're just looking after you. Because sometimes if you start adding things into what the children are already happy with, it's going to cause more stress. So that's more what I meant. There's definitely lots of changes you can make if you're just cooking for 1 or 2, but I'm trying to think of possibly we've got people who are looking after a whole household. So rather than upsetting them, just adding something really nutritious for themselves on the side would be my advice.
Okay, so you can reduce your portion a little bit and have something on the side that is ticking the boxes of the phytoestrogens and the fibre, omega-3, leafy greens, all of those sorts of things.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, yes. So that's dinner. What about breakfast?
Ooh, okay, I have a fabulous one for breakfast. I make a homemade muesli and I put everything in it that is good for me. And then it's ready to go. So I put in organic oats, and then I will add in different types of nuts and seeds. And you can actually, the way sometimes you might have a packet of ground almonds in your cupboard and you want to use it up, perfect time to use it up. And then I will flavor it or sweeten it as such with a bit of cinnamon. So that means there's much less need for any type of sugar. So I will have all of those flax seeds, ground and whole, sesame seeds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, loads of different things all mixed in with the oats. And then I have it ready for breakfast or even lunch on the go. I actually have it today with me for my lunch in a jar. Normally I'd be doing these things in my kitchen, I can show you, but I have my homemade muesli. Then I've got milk kefir, which I make at home, which is for looking after your gut. Then I have a chia berry compote on top, which is chia seeds and which is a source of omega-3, as well as some frozen fruit made into a beautiful compote that I can add extra nutrients in. So it doesn't have to be for breakfast, but that will be one of my go-to breakfasts.
And a very handy snack as well then.
Yeah, definitely.
So, thinking about snacking, any top tips on snacking? Because you mentioned sunflower seeds and various other things. I don't really know where you get those from. Are they from a health shop?
No, you can get them in most supermarkets now.
Oh, really? So what do? You don't necessarily just eat them from the bag. Do you process them or cook them in a different way?
If I'm doing the muesli, I'll just throw them in. But that is a great question. Seeds naturally have a phytic acid on the outside of them, and it makes it harder for us to access some of the nutrients. So what I do is I soak them and I rinse off that phytic acid, and then I dry them back out in the oven. So they're just really lightly toasted, because if you over toast them, some of those good fats are going to break down. So I just dry them back out and I sprinkle the liquid aminos on it and I store it in a jar. It'll keep for a couple of weeks. It's great in your desk, in your car, so many different places. And then that can be just a little snack. I'll take out a portion, have a little snack, or I can put it on top of salads or soups or anything. So that's how I tend to work with the sunflower and pumpkin seed mix that I make.
And that doesn't take long to do, I can imagine. And do they store, so you can put them in a Tupperware and just use them through the week?
Exactly. They store really well. So you're just trying to dry them out, and you just want them slightly crunchy, and they will store for a couple of weeks. No problem.
A bit of trial and error then on how long it takes to do in your oven. But one of the things that you did mention there, and you know, I know this is probably an elephant in the room, because you said you don't count calories and all of that sort of stuff. But belly fat is something a lot of us worry about postmenopause. Nobody, you know, you nipping at the waist seems to disappear a little bit. So, you know, is there a before and after on this one that says actually there's probably light at the end of the tunnel, that this can help with some of those dimension changes, shall we say?
Well, really, Deborah, if you are eating a full, broad, balanced diet, you're eating lots of your leafy greens, you're looking after your gut health, you're eating all of the fiber, etc., that's going to help. And then that together with your exercise can help with that. But your body is changing. So I have reduced my portions, and I'm very conscious of my portions, because what I could get away with before, I can't now. So that's for my own personal thing. But I think rather than, the way I feel about it is to love food and enjoy food and eat seasonal food, rather than worrying about how many grams of this is in that, etc., and how many calories. But you know, reducing portions and having your exercise and a wide varied diet is really beneficial.
Right. Thank you. And one of the things I am going to ask about is, you know, we mentioned earlier, because I know we had a question from somebody that says, I've started taking HRT, but I'm still struggling with the belly fat. It's not necessarily going to just disappear with the HRT, is it? You've mentioned exercise and diet, and maybe some elements of acceptance of you're not 20 anymore and things change over time.
And I find alcohol is like that as well. I've definitely had to reduce that because body just doesn't process it anymore. So got to find this new, healthier Fiona.
Well, sure. I'm sure that the elements of acceptance, and that we're in a different stage, and that's got benefits too. You know, there's a lot to look forward to post menopause, I would say. But the sort of that's that sort of understanding your own body and how it's changing, or how these improvements. Maybe people can keep a diary of what they're eating and the difference it's making to them.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of my main things is planning. One of my biggest tip is plan, and I can give you the resource of the planner and the shopping list, etc., a template that I use. And my advice is to get the whole household involved. Might be 2 people, it might be, you know, everybody's situation is different. And planning out what you're going to have for the week, but keeping in mind your schedule. So maybe Wednesday night is the night you have tennis, and maybe on a Monday you're visiting your elderly mother, or she's over for dinner, and maybe a Thursday is kids activity, whatever it might be. Keep all of that in mind when you're planning for the week. So I will, you know, if I'll know there's one day that I'm on the go, that'll be the day that I take out the chicken and broccoli that I made in the freezer last week, and it's ready to go, and I know dinner is ready. The weather's nice, I'll make up a lentil salad one day and an edamame salad the next day, and maybe an Asian slaw the next day. Each of those salads will keep for a few days. So by day 2, I've got 2 salads. By day 3, I've got 3 salads. And all I need to do is make a little bit of protein that goes with it. If some of the household are capable and old enough to cook, fantastic. But I hear from people all the time, oh, my child won't eat this, etc. And I say, okay, kids, what do you want to eat? And each person chooses something from my repertoire of, you know, I can put a healthier version on it. It can be baked wedges and a bit of grilled fish instead of fish and chips, or whatever it might be. But I think if everyone respects everybody else's choices, and you keep in mind busy schedules and busy lives, give yourself back more time so you're not in the kitchen. That's really a trick to it. And trying to do one main shop in the week. Those type of planning things can really make your life so much easier.
And that's very important if you're working full time and you don't want to sort of spend a lot of time doing this, because we all know that probably one of the demons of healthy eating is when you come in and you're exhausted and you just want something quick and you walk towards something that's processed.
Yeah, and one of my things would always have healthy snacks ready to go, because if you have highly processed or sugary snacks and you're tired and you come in, that's what you will go towards. Whereas if you just something like a medjool date with a little bit of peanut butter in it, that can be a fantastic high fiber to give you a bit of the sugar hit as well, and you've got your protein in your nuts. So it can be something really simple like that. Or, I mean, you can get the seeds in, it's not just the health food shops, you can get it in any of your German or supermarkets or your main supermarkets, and it doesn't cost much to put those together, or a bit of hummus and vegetables. But it's really about the chocolate flaxseed bars I make are beautiful as well. And I would have those in little squares, so they're ready to go. And it's really about being prepared and having those nice snacks, nutritious snacks that are going to do good for you. And even one of the things with soy people often don't think of is miso. So miso is made from soybeans. So in the winter, to have a little cup of miso warming when you come in, you're getting some protein, some phytoestrogens in that way. So there's so many different ways.
Wonderful. So thank you for sort of a rattle through of lots of top tips. I can see that lots of people are sharing advice and support in the background too. Sally, how are the questions coming along in the background?
Yeah, there's amazing sharing, it's great questions which we'll come on to. Someone's just said, I've just looked at Fiona's website full of recipes and I'm feeling inspired. So that was really lovely. Right. And I thought there was an amazing comment from someone talking about having a balanced diet, exercising, but making peace with our body. And I think that acceptance that the body's changing, I think as frustrating as it can feel, I think there is that making peace. I thought that was a really lovely thing to share. So the questions we've got in particular around phytoestrogens. So vegetables that were phytoestrogens, someone had put Brussels sprouts, just wanting to see if there's any other sources that you could share.
Let me think. So there are a number of varying ones, but I suppose the one that has the most were the ones that I was listing and that were easy to remember. Sprouted grains can be quite good. Like alfalfa seeds, those type of things. Yeah. Soya milk can be good as well, but ideally you're looking for organic when it comes to soy, so that's fine. But I personally love the unprocessed, like the edamame bean. Sorry, an edamame bean is a young soybean, just to clarify that. Yeah. That's kind of really, main ones there.
That's fantastic. And in terms of if someone starts to add in phytoestrogens into their diet and is struggling, as you were, with symptoms, how long would it maybe take to start to see an impact of those? Or how did you find it?
Yes, exactly. It's different for everyone, and I'm more chef than a health practitioner. But for me, I notice. So I suppose it took about a month or two before I was symptom-free. So I've nearly been 3 years symptom-free now. But if I do a lot of judging food awards. So we've got our quality food awards tomorrow night, and I would go and I would taste a lot of different foods. So I would be eating food that I wouldn't normally eat. So I might be missing my phytoestrogens. And by day 3 of judging, my joints are hurting me. So I'll notice it more when I stop taking it. That's kind of within 2 to 3 days, I can notice.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think it's with a lot of these things, it can take time for us to start to see the difference, but worth persevering.
And also I had a very healthy, balanced diet beforehand. I didn't have so much of the phytoestrogens, but I was eating minimal processed foods and, was aware very much of my nutrition beforehand.
Yeah, fantastic. And quite a few questions around protein, around in particular how much protein you should have. Can you have too much? Or and particular sources of protein, and I know you've mentioned some, but just to kind of a bit of recap on some of the key sources of protein that aren't typically fish or meat.
Okay, so when you're looking at the plant-based protein, for example, lentils are a good source of protein, but in order for your body to make the protein, you need all of the amino acids. So often they're not a complete protein. So if you were having lentils, you would have a bit of rice, therefore you would have all of the essential amino acids. Buckwheat can actually be quite a good source. It's not wheat, so it's gluten-free. It's actually from the rhubarb family. And when I make the granola, I put buckwheat groats into the granola. So that can be a helpful source. So the formula is, on average, I would kind of say it's about 20 grams per meal, but it's your body weight in kilograms multiplied by 0.8. And that's your recommended daily allowance of protein, and it should be spread out between your meals. Greek yogurt can be a fantastic way of upping your protein as well. Quinoa can be useful. So quinoa and buckwheat are complete proteins. And then you would lots of different legumes. So you'd have your different types of beans and chickpeas, etc. They can all help with your protein intake. This is excluding, obviously, the meat and fish and eggs and tofu, etc., which would be higher again.
Yeah, fantastic. And a lot of people have asked around kind of where they get these things from. I think we're starting to see more of things like edamame beans available in supermarkets. I know people have said, I think it was either Aldi or Lidl were great for seeds and nuts. So again, just kind of advice on how do people access some of the foods that you've been talking about, and what is generally readily available within supermarkets that people might be going to.
Okay, so the seeds, nuts and seeds, particularly Aldi, are very good on that. And we would have, so I'm based in Ireland, we'd have lots of different supermarkets here that would have it as well. So most supermarkets, you can get those seeds in no problem, or you can buy them online. There's some companies that do cold mill seeds, and Linwoods are the ones that I really like, and you can buy online from them, and they often have really good discounts, so they're fantastic. The edamame beans, it always comes up where to get those. You can buy them in an Asian supermarket, frozen. You can buy them in a lot of our regular supermarkets here anywhere, starting to do them frozen. One thing to consider is that the edamame beans generally come from China. So when there's been different research in terms of different chemicals that are used in the production, it tends to advise to use organic. So it's hard to get organic frozen, but you can get organic tinned. So if you want to bulk buy, you can do it that way. Yeah, that's pretty much on the edamames.
And someone's
liquid aminos, I know I mentioned that before. So that's from the protein of the soybean, and you can get that only in a health food shop, but it's a tiny little bit you use.
And I think this is really great, isn't it? Because we've all got different purses, and it seems like all of our budgets are all squeezed right now. So if this isn't going to cost us a fortune to do, and you can sort of make the changes gradually, then all the better. I think you were probably laughing at the same last comment as I did, Sally. We've had a comment says, a word of warning on the magic beans, wind.
Yes, so it is, and the lentils as well. You need to introduce them slowly so your body gets used to them, because it will a lot of the time cause wind. But in terms of budget, lentils are so what's the word I'm looking for, so inexpensive, and really can go a long way for your budget, particularly if you cook them yourselves. So to give a quick recipe on that, I do a lentil salad this time of year. So I will cook puy lentils, drain them. I will put grated lemon zest and juice on top, capers, and then I will put in cherry tomatoes, and you have a beautiful salad that'll last for days, which I top with nuts.
That sounds amazing. And I think someone's just asked a question as well around kind of sweet things, in terms of, is maple syrup a good sugar, good type of sugar, or a way of sweetening something? So if you're having something like a Greek yogurt, what you might do to sweeten that if somebody's wanting that kind of sweet flavour.
I tend to use cinnamon quite often to give that kind of sweetish bit. Maple syrup is a natural sugar, but they're all sugars. So I tend to make up the chia berry compote. So I put some frozen berries. I'll put the recipes all on my website. I'll put in some chia seeds and a tiny little bit of a honey or a maple syrup or a chicory root syrup, which is very high in fiber. And then keep that in the fridge for a few days, and I would add that on top. So not only are you getting that little bit of sweetness on your yogurt, but you're getting your omega-3 in your chia seeds, and you're getting all the antioxidants from the berries, etc.
Fantastic, thank you. And we've had a few questions around whether people can take some of these foods with certain medications. Those are really important, as we said, to check that out with your healthcare practitioner. So whether that's your oncologist or your GP, to make sure if you've got any other underlying condition, the impact these things can have. So I've not put those questions in this session, but if you just double check anything that you're going to be changing within your diet. And that's all our questions.
Thank you very much, Sally. And there was the last question in the chat was, can you share Fiona's website, please? And it was very kind of you to say, I'll put some recipes up. I think there's already some up there. And as Sally said, people were saying they feel particularly inspired. So yes, please, to the recipes, particularly the chocolate one, because my ears pricked up at that one.
Chocolate flaxseed bars are fantastic. Yeah, it's fionasfoodforlife.ie. and on social media, etc. There's loads of recipes up there, so lots of tips, and the free resource in terms of the menu planner and the shopping list.
Thank you very much, Fiona. And we will share your website with everybody that's joined us today and broader. Thank you very much for the top tips and for joining us today. And to everyone else, thank you for being so generous with each other as always, sharing your ideas and top tips as well. So I'm sure we'll see you again soon, if that's okay, Fiona. And thank you very much.
I'd love to. Thanks for having me, Deborah. Thank you.
All the best, everyone. Bye.